The United States is enraged at the UK. It's because the UK is getting into negotiations and considering transferring this tiny island to Mauritius. And if that happens, it unequivocally would allow China to gain a strategic foothold in the Indian Ocean, allowing it to project power and extend its influence in the region. Right in the middle of the Indian Ocean, there is an archipelago of islands called the Chagos group of islands, including Diego Garcia in particular, that serves as an important strategic location for the United States and Britain. And both the countries have been using Diego Garcia as a joint military base since it was established in the 1970s and was given on lease to the United States by Britain for its defense operations. The Chagos archipelago was part of the territory of Mauritius when it was a British colony. In the 1960s, the UK separated the archipelago from Mauritius to create the British Indian Ocean Territory before granting independence to Mauritius in 1968. Mauritius contends that this separation was illegal and a violation of its territorial integrity. In 2017, Mauritius took the matter to the International Court of Justice, seeking an advisory opinion on the legality of the separation. In February 2019, the ICJ issued an advisory opinion stating that the UK's decolonization process was incomplete and that the separation of the Chagos archipelago from Mauritius was illegal under international law. The court called for the UK to end its administration of the Chagos Islands as soon as possible. And this advisory opinion by the International Court of Justice has seriously ruffled American feathers. Nevertheless, the concerns regarding repossession of Chagos group of islands goes way beyond what's visible on the surface. You see, Mauritius has a decent amount of debt on its government. In the year 2019, Mauritius recorded a government debt-to-GDP ratio of 58% of the country's gross domestic product. Since independence from Britain in 1968, Mauritius has developed from a low-income agricultural-based economy to a high-income diversified economy based on tourism, textiles, sugar, and financial services. However, that doesn't mean Mauritius is free from financial pressures. The country has almost no exploitable fossil fuel reserves and so relies on imported petroleum products to power its economy and infrastructure. And for that, the government has to draw loans from countries like China to fund their economic operations. But apparently, China is the world's biggest and most unforgiving government lender. China has had a history of lending huge sums of money, upwards of hundreds of billions of dollars, to various countries to ease some of their financial pressures. However, China's loans have been criticized for their terms, which along with high interest rates, often involve shorter repayment periods and collateral requirements. These conditions have raised concerns about debt sustainability, particularly for countries like Mauritius with limited financial resources. And when countries like Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and many more fail to pay back, China captures part of their territory as collateral or as per the terms and conditions of loan sanctions and gains rights to build ports and bases in the indebted countries. And this is one of the biggest concerns for the United States if Chagos archipelago is handed over to Mauritius. You see, in the year 2016, China wrote off Mauritian debt of over $450 million. Mauritius, according to a 2018 report, had a total debt of approximately $200 billion, and therefore China is finding every possible way to please Mauritius. But the US claims that this is just a Chinese bluff to gain control over the Indian Ocean by acquiring ports and bases in the vicinity. And it became more evident when in 2017, China took control over a major port in Hambantota in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka took massive loans from China to build its infrastructures and ports. However, it faced difficulties in repaying the loans taken for the port development due to a combination of factors, including high interest rates and revenue shortfalls from the port operations. Sri Lanka's debt burden increased, leading to concerns about its ability to meet repayment obligations. Therefore, in 2017, Sri Lanka entered into a debt-to-equity swap agreement with China, under which a Chinese state-owned enterprise, China Merchant Port Holdings, took control of a 70% stake in the Hambantota port in exchange for debt relief and a 99-year lease to operate freely in and out of the port. And the United States, under any circumstances, does not want China to spread its dragon wings in different parts of the world, as it's a direct threat and a major obstacle to U.S. strategic military operation bases. You see, the military base on Diego Garcia, called Camp Thundercover, which is part of the facility, serves as a forward operating base for the U.S. military, enabling the U.S. to conduct a range of military operations, including surveillance, reconnaissance, and maritime security, which allows the U.S. to project its military presence and power in the Indian Ocean region and beyond. The United States operates a global network of military installations and is by far the largest operator of military bases in the world, with locations in dozens of nations on every single continent, having active duty, U.S. National Guard, reserves, or civilian personnel. And out of the total 5,000 bases, 600 of them are overseas, including the Naval Support Facility at Diego Garcia. The base at the island is so strategically located that it has helped the United States in various peacekeeping and humanitarian missions, along with various war efforts in the Gulf. During the Gulf War from 1990 to 1991, Diego Garcia served as a crucial logistics hub and staging area for the United States. It provided a strategic location for prepositioning military assets, including medium to long-range bomber aircrafts, naval fleets, and equipment. Furthermore, following the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, Diego Garcia played a very important role in the U.S.-led invasion of Afghanistan. Therefore, if the Chagos Archipelago falls under the hands of Chinese forces, the United States will lose its control, influence, and power in the region. And this is exactly what China has been pursuing to accomplish for decades. You see, in 2013, China announced the Belt and Road Initiative, a major global infrastructure development strategy adopted by the Chinese government to invest in more than 150 countries and international organizations in order to promote economic connectivity and cooperation among countries along the ancient Silk Road trade routes. The initiative consists of two main components: the land-based belt and the sea-based road, which is the 21st century maritime Silk Road. As of January 2023, 151 countries were listed as having signed up to the BRI. The participating countries include almost 75% of the world's population and account for more than half of the world's GDP. However, this initiative has been heavily criticized by other nations, including the US and India. According to International Claims, China uses a sneaky non-military technique to capture new territories by building new ports and bases indebting economically weak countries. After taking hold of shipping ports in those countries, China takes the ports on lease for 50 to 100 years that would help it to eventually build military bases in future, which could help it to exude greater influence and power all over the world. And Diego Garcia falls right in between, completely controlled by the United States. And this is the primary reason the US is against the consideration of handing over Chagos Archipelago to Mauritius. However, due to international pressures, Britain may be forced to hand it over to Mauritius sooner or later. However, the UK has assured the United States that it will not lose control of Diego Garcia even if the island is transferred to Mauritius. You see, when Britain acquired the Chagos Archipelago, it came into a long-term agreement to establish a joint military base with the United States. The agreement is in place until 2036, which means the base can be legally operated by the US even if the islands are owned by Mauritius. However, the US wishes to have a forever control over the region. But after the expiration of the agreement, China, which has already indebted Mauritius, may force Mauritius to ask US troops to wind up everything at Diego Garcia. However, one possibility suggested by Ian Duncan Smith, who is the member of UK's parliament, is that after the transfer of the islands, US can reacquire Diego Garcia from Mauritius on a 99-year lease. This move will again ensure a long-term control over the region and will keep China out of the perimeter. This is Stories Across, and thank you for watching.